You want to make sure that your practice is high quality practice and not low quality practice, where you'll have to unlearn things later on. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing 7 different things that you do not want to miss as a piano beginner. All of these 7 different tips are going to help you change your music from sounding simple or dry to much more expressive and enjoyable for you to play and for people to listen to as well. So let's jump right in. First of all, we are going to talk about slurs on the piano. So when you see this little symbol over notes, and it could be over 2 notes or more than 2 notes, this is called a slur. And there are 2 different meanings that a slur could have. It could be a tie, and that's when it's connecting the same note to the same note. Or, in what we're going to be talking about today, it can be talking about a way of playing, which is called legato. Now, you may be familiar with what legato means, but if not, legato just means to play the notes smooth and connected. So all of the notes that are underneath that slur are going to be played smooth and connected. Let me show you what that will look like on the piano. So when you're playing smooth and connected, you want to play one finger until the next finger plays, and then you'll release the previous finger. And then you'll continue that way, holding down each finger until the next finger plays, until you finish the slur. Now at the end of that slur marking, you're going to lift your finger. So here is an example of a slur. And then you'll release your finger at the end of that slur and give it just a small little lift with your wrist. The second thing that will bring a lot of expression to your playing as a beginner piano player is learning how to play staccatos correctly. Now when you see a staccato, it's going to look like this, a note that has a small dot right above the head of the note, or right below the head of the note, depending on which direction the stem is facing. Now when you see a staccato, the easiest way to think of this is to play short and bouncy. So when you play this way, your finger will drop into the key and release immediately. And I like to think of it as jumping on a trampoline. So your finger lands and then it releases out of the note. So here's an example. Now, you don't want to raise your wrist too high or else it'll be hard to get back down for the next note. So you don't want to look like this. So that's one common mistake. Now a third thing that's going to really help your playing as a beginner, and it's going to make your music so much more expressive, is learning about dynamics and how to play them. So dynamics in music just show how loudly or how softly you should be playing. There's various levels of dynamics, but as a beginner, the most common ones that you'll see are ranging from pianissimo to fortissimo. And then between that, there's pianissimo, piano, mezzo piano, mezzo forte, forte, and then fortissimo. So that's ranging from the quietest level to the loudest level. So on the piano, there's a very important technique to understand in order to be able to play dynamics very well without hurting yourself and still getting that full range from the very, very quiet dynamics to the very, very loud dynamics. And this is what I'm going to call the dead weight hand. Now when you're playing the piano, your fingers are the tools that you're using to play the instrument. And along with your fingers, you're also using your hands, of course, and your wrists, and then your arms, and all the way up really to your shoulder and your body. So when you're thinking about playing the piano, you also want to think about using all of these muscles all the way up into your arms to get that full range of dynamics on the piano. When you're wanting to play very, very loudly, like a fortissimo on the piano, you're going to want to think of your arm all the way from your shoulder down into your hand as being almost like a dead weight. And one way to feel this is hold out one hand and let your arm just fall into your other hand and feel how much weight your arm has. Okay. So it has a lot of weight if you just let it dead weight fall. So when you're playing the piano, you want to use that to your advantage. You want to use all of that weight from your whole arm to be able to get a nice full forte or fortissimo. This is going to prevent you from a lot of strain in your fingertips that can happen if you start to play just from the muscles of your hand pushing into the keys. Here's an example of me playing a chord with just the muscles of my fingertips pushing in. And now I'm going to do the dead weight fall with my hand, my arm, all the way up to my shoulder. I'm just gonna let it dead weight fall, but still with my fingers being rounded and curved with a straight wrist. Do you hear that big difference? So now it really sounded more like forte fortissimo because I was letting my whole arm weight sink into the keys. Now this will take a little bit of practice, but one way to do this is you could practice this with your scales. So I was just playing that at like a forte level, letting my fingers just fall into each key. And I'm not putting any strain on the muscles of my fingers when I'm doing that. I'm allowing my whole hand and arm to just sink down into each note. Now, of course, as you're trying to do the lesser and lesser dynamics, you'll be able to use less and less of that whole arm weight to the point where when you reach pianissimo, you really are just using the weight of each fingertip gently falling into each key. What's really important to remember as you're practicing this whole range of dynamics is to keep that rounded hand shape, that kind of C-shaped hand on the piano with rounded fingertips. You don't want to start collapsing either flat, or you also don't want to start having where the fingertip starts to go out. Because you could still have a rounded hand shape but have fingers that aren't staying rounded like this, and this can happen to people frequently, so you'll want to watch out for that and make sure that you're staying on the balls of your fingers and that is where you're making contact with the key. This may seem extremely basic and self-explanatory, but it is very important, and that is to actually practice. Now I know that doesn't sound very glamorous, but we can't skip the super important tough work of daily practice to be able to improve on your piano skills and to be able to get better and better over time. So even if you're only able to spend 15 or 20 minutes of practice time on the piano every day, that will help you improve immensely over time. Rather than just working one time a week or just twice a week, even just a little bit of daily practice is going to help you so much. Not only just the daily practice, but also the quality of your practice. Because what you want to make sure is that when you do sit down to practice, whether it's for a short amount of time or a long amount of time, you want to make sure that you're practicing things accurately and not just mindlessly running through things over and over without thinking about it. And here's why. Whenever you practice, it's like you're creating a road in your mind that you're traveling along. And the more that you practice something or play something, the more ingrained and embedded it's going to become inside of your brain. So if you're mindlessly playing something, it's very likely that you'll be practicing things that are incorrect or bad technique that are going to become imprinted in your brain, and it will be much harder later on to come back and try to change those bad techniques or those wrong notes or wrong fingerings later on once that's really imprinted and embedded inside of your hands and inside of your brain. So each time you practice, it's a good idea to just really take focused practice time where you're making sure that the notes that you're playing are correct, the fingerings you're playing are correct, and the beats that you're playing are correct. And then when you start to get tired and you start finding yourself drifting into mindless practicing, that's when it's a good idea to just take a break and come back to it later. You want to make sure that your practice is high quality practice and not low quality practice, where you'll have to unlearn things later on. The next thing that is very, very important as a beginner piano player is to, as fast as you can, memorize and learn all the notes of the treble clef and also the bass clef. Now, if you need any help with that, I have an entire crash course video on how to learn to read music and some tricks and tips to help you with that and how to learn that quickly. So I will link that up for you right here. If you've already learned how to read music but you feel like you're a little bit slow and you're not able to just quickly identify what different notes are, one of the best ways that you can get better quickly is to spend a little bit of time every single day sight reading. And that just means that you pull out a new page of music or a new song, something that's new that you've never seen before, that is at your level of playing. So you don't want to choose something that's way too hard or too difficult, but something that's at your level, and try to read something new every single day. If you do this every single day, you'll find that your skills of reading music are going to improve very, very quickly, just through that challenge of every single day having something new that you need to learn how to play. Finally, we're going to finish with a very important technique that beginner piano players should all learn how to play This is going to help you immensely in your piano playing skills. And this technique is flexible wrist motion as you are playing. So learning how to play with your wrist moving flexibly behind whichever finger is playing on the piano. So when we're talking about wrist motion behind the fingers, if you see my wrist here, when you're playing piano, you want to think of it as a very flexible wrist and that it'll move depending on which finger is playing. So I'll demonstrate this showing a 5-finger scale, and I'm going to let my wrist follow each finger as it plays. So you saw that each finger, I just let my wrist follow the finger as it played. Now I can demonstrate that with the left hand as well. I hope this was helpful for you all today. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up down below, and you can also subscribe to my channel for weekly videos on how to learn to play the piano, the violin, and tons of other music making tips and tricks along the way. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.